All right, man. Thank you guys for being patient. We are running a few minutes late. That was my fault and everything. So, you guys can get down on my case if you want to. But thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of, Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. And as always, man, we got another amazing guest I've had on the panel. So if you guys didn't see the panel, man, you guys go back and check her out, man. She's a good person, amazingly brilliant. You know what I'm saying? She's known as the brain coach D. Yeah, and so you know what I'm saying. Without further ado, I want to introduce this woman. You know what I'm saying, Dominique, and we're going to talk about the brain, you guys. You know what I'm saying, and I think you guys are going to like what she brings to the table. So let me bring her on out. Boom, Dominica.
Hello, Tony. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Welcome to the show again, and thank you for your time today. And I'm looking forward to us having an amazing conversation. So before we start, introduce yourself. Give people a brief introduction about who you are.
Okay, well, I'm the middle and the beautiful merge between the modern medicine and the natural ways of healing ourselves. I'm a brain coach trained by none other than Dr. Joseph McClendon III, who is a head coach for Tony Robbins and trains all his coaches and trainers. And he's absolutely phenomenal. If you don't know him, check it out and at the Neuron Coding Institute. And of course, none other than PhD phenomenal Dr. Amen, who's a neuropsychiatrist who believes that we got to try absolutely everything before we go on medication. And that is exactly what I do. I'm your first and last stop. First, when you don't want to go on a medication, you want to try the last thing you can do so you don't have to take the meds. And I'm your first stop when you decide with your doctor they want to get off meds, but you need to rewire your brain so you will never default to your old behaviors like fear of failure, fear of success, self-doubt, self-loathing, PTSD, anxiety, imposter syndrome, feeling unworthy, feeling less than, feeling of not belonging, anxiety, ADHD, all of those things can be worked and rewired in your brain while using your gut health, and other things that we know that absolutely work and are proven scientifically, not only, from the psychology point of view, but also from the brain stem, how the brain works, the neuroplasticity, and how can we change our life for the better without necessarily resorting immediately to the medication.
Oh man, I love that because I think and we talked about this before. A lot of people are just quick to push medication on people instead of actually doing the work. And I think we talked about that on the panel. That rubs me the wrong way. Like, do your job, and and see if we can do anything. That this should be the last resort. Put a person on medication should be a last resort, at least in my
Absolutely.
opinion. You know, um,
And
how
it's
did you?
important to say also that medication is good, and especially if you're in acute state, you're going through, a breakdown where this is, if you have stage 4 cancer, please do not resort to drinking juices, right?
Right,
If you're about to kill yourself, call 988 and go to people who are really, really specializing in suicide. Do not go
right.
to a coach. That's not the time to go to me. But if you're experiencing ADHD, anxiety, a lot of those things, self-loathing, self-doubt, that is the time where you still have time to try other things than, the medication that sometimes is necessary.
Right. And I, like I said, I get it. I know, what I'm saying, there are situations, what I'm saying, the medication needs to be situational, like
Absolutely.
if it's necessary, completely necessary, do it. What I'm saying, by any means necessary, let's make sure that we get them the help and what I'm saying, that they need in order for them to start getting better, especially when you talk about cancer and things like that. Yeah, to go to someone. Suicide 988. You already know this. We talked about this. I'm totally in agreement with that. Now, where are you from?
I'm Polish. I was born in Warsaw, then raised partially in California, then went back to Poland, then lived in UK, then went back to Poland. And then 6.5 years ago, almost 7, came back to the US and started from scratch.
All right. See, that's what I'm talking about right there. I think we all come back and, and start from scratch. Like, this is what I'm going to do, and we build up from there. And now, uh, walk us through the journey of you getting into the field that you're in, because we talked about it.
Right.
You have your own grief journey that you've gone through. Share your journey with us.
Okay. Well, I was a very rebellious teenager. That is important because I was a nonconformist and partially I still am.
Mhm.
I always challenge authority and I always wanted to do it my own way. With that being said, being a teenager, having my prefrontal cortex not really developed, I made some very bad choices,
Mhm.
which meant I ended up with a man who was extremely abusive, to a point where he raped me after having a child, where I had to be sewn back together. He put my head in a toilet, he put a gun to my head. He woke me up at 6 a.m. and threw me out of the bed and said, "Clean, bitch," throwing a piece of white paper into my hand. And I was on my 4 knees and legs and cleaning the sideboards, being 7 months pregnant. And then I gave birth to a son. While giving birth to him, I died. They brought me back. And when my son was about 11 months old, I ran. I got police protection. I saved myself. Um, and then when my son was 16 months old, he passed away and fell asleep, never woke up. And then I don't remember 2 years of my life. And one day I had this epiphany when I was in bed. I don't know what I was doing. I remember being in bed and having just one thought: if I'm suffering so much with a child that's been alive for 16 months, if I take my own life, my mom will not survive this. And
Mhm.
the feeling of being the reason why somebody would take their life was the reason why I started crawling back out. It took years. It took working with a psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, and then I ended up with coaches. While I was working on me, I was also a coach for career coaching. I was extremely successful, got married later on, had 2 kids, got divorced, obviously not so successful in marriage, but hey, you got to keep trying, right?
Let's see
um,
what they say.
and I kept growing and growing. Then one day I was healed. I was in a good place. I stopped coaching, career coaching, because it wasn't fulfilling for me. And
Mhm.
because of my education, I am science based. I need evidence that something is working. And I question Joseph, Dr. Amen, Tony Robbins. And I sometimes find things that, well, that's not exactly what they're saying, but I need to know that this is provable, that this actually exists. That's
Right,
my.
right.
And I ran into one day something that was called a brain revolution, and it was a combination of Dr. Amen and Joseph McLennan III doing something that I fell in love with. It was brain coaching. It was
Okay.
using neuroscience to rewire your brain, to use your plasticity in a way that allows you to get rid of trauma, emotional problems, and things that I spoke about. Usually, with within 6 months, none of my clients ever stayed longer with me than 6 months because they literally didn't need me. And that also includes, supplements and your food and your behavioral patterns and um, all of the things that we know, but condensed in a certain way of neuron coding, which is Joseph's method of coaching, and also combined with methods of coaching from um, John C. Maxwell and Tony Robbins. That is just an explosive mix. And also a lot of trainings with storytelling, which is very important in coaching, from Les Brown. So when you take that in, it's just I finally found something that I could stand behind, that my integrity was intact, where I knew that there is science behind what I'm doing, that I know it's going to be working. And I also know my place. I know what
Mhm.
I can do. I know where I can help you. And I know where it's above my pay grade and I have to refer you out. And that brought so much light into me. And I'm like, okay, I want to make a world a better place. And now I have the tools. I use them on me, I use them on my clients, and it's just amazing how much you can do if you choose. And that's very important, when you choose to change your life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man, you've been with some heavy hitters, man. Les Brown, Tony Robbins. Just those two names right there. And we'll talk about the neuroscience and everything, and a little bit more about the science of working using the brain and how that connects to the gut and everything, and how that coincides with the body when dealing with a lot of those things. Because it's is it sort of like a reset?
So reset, if we think of a reset, we think of making, cleaning everything out and having something from scratch cleaned. So it's not, because at
Okay.
our age, okay, if you're before age of 25, your neuroplasticity works that whatever you encounter, you create new neural connections.
Okay.
After, on average, age of 25, some say 28, depending if you're a male, female, let's just take 25. What happens is you need to direct your brain and tell your brain, hey, this needs to change. This is not serving me. I want this to change. So your brain can build new neural pathways. And
Okay.
what's important to understand is that you need to prove to your brain that what you're saying is actually viable and there is reason behind it. And it's kind of interesting because, people discovered affirmations and were going, oh, I'm going to say I'm a millionaire. And then they go, affirmations don't work. Well, of course they don't work because there's no evidence to prove that you're a millionaire. What if instead of saying I'm a millionaire, you're going to say I'm becoming a millionaire,
Right.
which is
Yes.
a
Yes.
process. And your brain goes, well, I made $50 yesterday, I made $100 yesterday, and I made $1,000 2 weeks ago. Okay, I'm becoming. That is true. I can stand behind it, which creates certain way of connectivity. Your
Okay.
neural pathways with experiences are very funny because how it works is when you direct your attention to the change after the age of 25,
Hmm.
first time it becomes like a little tiny piece of hair. It's very thin, very delicate. But then when you keep repeating the same behavior, thought, and emotion, it's very important that you do have the emotion in it. It becomes like a ribbon. And after a ribbon, it becomes like a sidewalk. And after a sidewalk, it becomes a one-way road, then a two-way road, then a highway, then a freeway. And when it's a freeway, it becomes your automatic behavior. It becomes your habit. And our brain loves habits, and our brain create 95% of your behavior is a habit. You're not thinking about it. And it does that to conserve energy because it needs energy for other processes. It directs your hormones, it directs your, how you walk, your internal organs. So it wants to simplify everything as fast as it can. And that is where the work is. Because if you're, for example, so what Joseph teaches, and many of you probably heard that, and you might have heard that, is what you think is what you feel. What you feel is what you do, and what you do is what you have. But before this process, and you can interrupt that at any point, it's what you
Okay.
believe.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. During that process, the interruption of it. Um, and I guess from what I'm gathering as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, the interruption can be a negative or a positive depending on the situation, correct?
It can, but the idea is that we do it consciously now. We recognize
Okay.
what
Okay.
we do, and then we go, okay, I would usually, for example, react and raise my voice. Let me stop myself and see what happens when I don't raise my voice.
Okay. Okay.
So our brain creates with every word you use, literally every word, discharge of chemicals that
Yes.
make you feel a certain way. So, what if, for example, you start, and I took that from Tony Robbins and Joseph McClendon. What if you would take, for example, instead of knowing, switch it into curiosity? I want you to, if you can, say it to yourself, I'm curious, why is she acting like this?
Mm.
Instead of saying, I know why she's doing this. The release of chemicals from your brain, depending on how you structure your sentence and what word is in there, will have a very different parts of your brain activated. When you're curious, you're an observer. There's no
Mm.
decision. Now, I'm not saying don't judge. I'm saying be curious and then decide, because it allows you to stop reacting automatically, which very often gets us in trouble. The same
Right.
with pain and emotions. So there are multiple ways that we can interrupt the patterns, but to interrupt them, we have to recognize them. You have to admit to yourself that this is your typical behavior. This is
Yes.
what triggers you. This is how you react to certain situations. But before that happens, you need to understand what you believe in. And the problem with beliefs is that most of them were formed before you're 7 years old. And they
Hmm.
were formed without you knowing about it, without you taking part in it. It is your brain connecting situations, words, people into one thing and creating a belief. And when you're a kid, you're extremely plastic. And then what your brain does, because your brain will always prove you right, and I'm going to keep repeating that over and over because that's so important. Your brain will always prove you right. If you believe all people are bad, your brain will seek out people who are bad and say, see, that person is acting like this. See, that person is acting like this. This person is acting like this. I'm right. All people are bad. But at the same time,
Yeah.
there are plenty of people who are absolutely beautiful, wonderful, and supportive. It just you choose to seek out, not consciously, subconsciously. That's part of coaching, realizing what you believe. There are phenomenal studies on neuroplasticity and neuropathways in your brain when it lights up, depending on your belief on the level of your emotion, as well as the belief system that influences what you think. So the thought is not the first thing. Thought is an electrical impulse
Right.
that then goes down, your body. But what happens before is what you believe deep inside, and you don't even know you believe. And one of the things that I always invite people to do is start with your belief system, and not just, oh, I believe people, this, I don't know, men are bad. And let's start with that. A lot of women believe that men are mean, cruel, bad. They will cheat us out of our money. They are cheaters. And they have a whole list. And I
Oh, yeah.
guess men have a similar belief about women, the men that are hurt. So
Yes.
women
Yeah.
that are hurt have that belief as well. And it was a great exercise at one of Tony Robbins' event. And he asked, it was about 5,000 of us, people from all over the world, Africa, Eastern Europe, US, white, black, pink, orange, all colors of the rainbow, all beliefs. And he asked the question to men. He goes, men, do you sometimes when you do something, and please, I'm going to quote Tony, and as we know, Tony curses, but this I think goes over better with that word. He goes, man, when you're doing sometimes things, she's gonna be pissed off, right? So the
Hmm.
men go, ha 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 ha, yeah. And he just goes silent, looks at them, and so why the fuck do you do it?
Yeah. Yeah. That
And
is
then
amazing.
he went to women, goes, ladies, how many of you remember we're from all over the world, different languages, different cultures, different
Right.
belief systems, like the diversity top notch.
I love it.
And he goes, ladies, how many of you were ever told by a mother, sister, auntie, or grandma that men should never be trusted? Raise your hand. And I want you to think, how many women do you think raised their hand?
I would say, depending, well, not even depending, I would say probably 80, 85%,
100%.
100%. Really?
All of us have been told that by our mothers,
Really?
grandmothers, aunties. And then he asked us a question. So, how do you ever plan to build a relationship with a man if from the get go he's a person not to be trusted? And then we went silent.
Hmm.
So, see, there are a lot of things that it's not the fault of the man, it's not the fault of the woman. It is a
Right, right.
society and years of conditioning that now we get to choose if we believe that and we go along that way. And the same thing with trauma. There is a phenomenal experiment you can read about done on mice. So, what they did, they had mice and they scared them with, there were cherries. So, they created fear of cherries with mice. Every time she would touch the cherry, she would get electrified. So,
Mm.
when she had babies, they would show the cherries and the babies would never come up to the cherry, but they never had an experience before with a cherry. And then they did it with a next generation. They were also afraid of cherries. But they never saw a cherry before. They were terrified of those cherries. As we know, cherries are not harmful.
Right,
And
right.
then they had a control group which had cherries that were just cherries, right? There was no electrification. And all the other mice in that generation and following generations had absolutely no traumatic experience. They were not afraid of it. See, we don't realize, but genetically, we are as humans taught to be afraid of certain things. So,
Yes.
what if a lot of behaviors that men have and women have is because somebody in the past generations has actually hurt them? Now, knowing that that's one thing, but it's not an excuse for a behavior and continuing that behavior towards people who have literally nothing to do and they've never hurt you, yet you hold them responsible for your great 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 grandma's experience.
Yes. Yes.
And that is something I always want to make sure that everybody gets, because what happened in the past was absolutely bad. That person was hurt, traumatized, whatever. That is terrible. And at the same time, you're an adult. You choose which behaviors you exhibit. You choose what you believe. You choose if you want to change that fear or if you want to keep living in it.
Yeah, I definitely like that. It it's a lot similar to the work I've done, right? Not that extensive, right? You know what I'm saying? Because we just have different approaches, very effective with each approach. I always tell them, in order, especially with men, because but sometimes with men, you just have to have a different approach. You have to be able to appeal to the masculine nature of the man, and not view everything as a toxic thing, right? You know what I'm saying? Hurt people, and
Absolutely.
and this, from the work that I've done with myself, just like yourself, you got to use the things that you have to make sure that they're efficient, right? To make sure that they work, and then you put it out there and see what happens. And I'm a firm believer, like if you're in a place of darkness, it didn't start there. It's just now starting to manifest itself. So I tell the men, in order to understand why this place is here, we have to go back and heal the child. We have to work on the inner child. And they kind of look at me. I'm like, no, seriously, you have to work on the inner child, because this, what you're seeing right here, this is years and years and years that have been piled up on you. And this is the first time that you've ever asked for help. So what you want me to do, you want me to help you treat the symptoms, but not the cause. So in order for you to completely heal, we have to go to where it first started. And again, different approach for different folks as well. You gotta figure out what works for different people. Um, so it sounds like it's pretty much the same thing, but you're just using the brain and just rewind, well, retraining it for the
Yeah.
most part, and going, hey, how about if we do this? We're going to replace this over here and give you something more efficient over here to focus on, which is going to help you focus better, and pinpoint the causes. Then we can move forward and
And
things like that.
the thing is that we cannot change the past. And very
Right.
often people go, why did somebody do that? You will never find out why somebody
No.
did. Most likely they did it because they were hurt or they had their own traumas and you were kind of in the way and they didn't know any better. And realizing that allows you to give grace to people. And what you're talking
Right.
about is
Right.
inner
Exactly.
child.
Right. And that's why I said it's not about the person who did it to you
Yeah.
or the individuals who did it to you. A lot of times it's the forgiveness is for yourself, right? Um, and the reason why I say that, because for me, I realized that I was carrying a lot of hurt with me, and I never understood why. Um, and the way that it came out was violence. It came out in alcoholism. It came out in, you know, um, being promiscuous with women, things like that, and not really taking care of myself. And I didn't understand why, because I was always taught to not express emotions and things like that. Like, hey, if something happens, you just man up. Man up. Young men don't cry and things like that. So, and that's why I said when it comes down to men, it's a different approach. And what I found that, when I went back and did the work on myself in order to start moving forward, there was a process that I had to go through, and it was things that I recognized. Again, what I'm saying, not as extensive as the work that you do. This was just something that helped me, right?
I
Um,
think it's fantastic what you did. And I think I wish my dream would be that, because all of us had messed up relationships. Okay. I don't
right,
think there's one person that had all phenomenal relationships. If we were, we would meet the first person, get married, and stay married till we die. And
exactly.
most of us don't. Most of us have
No,
the baggage, and most of us have experiences. The thing is that it's so important that if, let's say, two, three relationships at the beginning of your life or even later fell apart, to stop and say, okay, why did they fall apart? What
hmm
could I have done differently? Can I
hmm
have chosen differently? Because that's also important.
right,
What question am I going to ask now to my future partner? And I have found that after I did the work on me, I run into great men that have not done the work, and I am not there to heal them. They need to do that work on their own
right,
before they're ready to be in a relationship.
right.
And that is a challenge, because we seem, a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people keep jumping from a relationship to a relationship, keep repeating the same mistakes. But
Mhm.
if you keep doing the same thing over and over, choosing the same type of women slash the same type of men, you will get the same result.
Exactly.
What questions could you ask when you get to know that woman? How long are you going to sustain? It's not about, oh, it has to be 3 months. Oh, it has to be half a year before you have sex, or it has to be 5 days. But what questions do you need answered to see if that is a potential match for you?
See,
Right?
I like that because it makes you question what you really want, right? On a deeper level, especially if you've done the work. And I heard this, and I totally agree with what you just said. You should never get into a relationship with someone who's never done the work on themselves, and you've done the work. I have made that mistake. I have made that mistake, right? And it wasn't because I was out there and I saw her and was like, "Oh, I like this person. I like the way that she looked. I like the way that she vibed with me." You know what I'm saying? So it was a different feel, right? And
And I'm
after
going to stop
talking,
you here because I have a beautiful question for you, because I've
yeah,
been where what you're describing. She was vibing with the new you of what you've remembered from the past, how it vibes when you were not healed.
well,
And
actually, I had done the work. I had done the work. And so, you know what I'm saying? She was vibing with who I was at that time because I got into this work. And so I've done the work on myself. And I had taken a long time of just being single. No dating. I don't want to, I don't want to associate with you. I don't want to be friends with you, because for one, I'm tired of hurting and I'm tired of hurting other people. So I became self-aware of what I was doing. No,
right.
I took years and years and years just to myself. And so when I met this young lady, we had a great conversation. Um, she was in similar work to what I was doing. So, automatically you think to yourself, okay, you're in similar work to what I'm doing. You've done some work on yourself. And we talked and we vibed and everything. And I was just enjoying it, right? I was enjoying the conversation more than anything else. And it was something about her that excited me. So from there, I was like, okay, we went out on a couple of dates, I'm saying, nothing physical or anything like that. Again, I was not trying to put myself in that situation. I just thought it would be nice to go out and enjoy the company of a fellow of someone who has similar interests in me, like me, right? And then from there, it kind of grew. Well, the problem was I missed something. I missed something. Wasn't her fault. It was totally my fault.
It's
She
nobody's fault.
had
It's a
well,
learning
she
curve.
well, it was a learning curve, right? Because just
And it was
because
the
we
first time you were dating after a long time. So now
yeah,
you got to relearn how to do that and what to look for, right? You're
well,
rediscovering
I
what
knew
you want.
well, actually, I knew what to look for, right? And she said all the right words. She checked all the boxes. The
Uh-huh.
problem is that there was a box that I forgot to mention, and
Oh,
so we didn't. She didn't really check the box. And then I found out that she was still healing from some trauma that had recently happened. So she left that out. So and what it was is that she had a husband that committed suicide in front of her. And the
Oh,
trauma was is that, you know what I'm saying, when he took his life, his head hit her and all
oh,
of its
God.
content. Yes. So
Whew.
even though, yes, exactly right. And so, shocker, right? You know what I'm saying? Oh, we just forgot that whole part. So, you know what I'm saying? And so when I found out, we had been dating for a little bit, and she got angry with me for some reason, and I'm a very peaceful individual, so that's what kind of took me, it kind of got me wondering, because I'm not going to argue, you know what I'm saying. I see you snappy, you know what I'm saying. I'm paying attention to you because that's my job as your other half, you know what I'm saying, your significant other, is to pay attention to you so I know how to properly, you know what I'm saying, love you in these moments. But then when I realized what was going on, I realized that there was nothing that I could do. The work needed to be done by her. And I heard this amazing quote. I was looking at a podcast, and they were talking about high value men, right? Yeah, and the woman was asking about what do high value men look for in women, and the man said pretty much the same thing that you said. Especially when it comes down to healing and healing your trauma and your past and things like that. I'm a firm believer. He said, it is not my job to heal you. You
Yep.
should have been working on that long before you got in a relationship with me, because I am not going to waste the time with someone who do not understand or has not healed themselves. Because there's, for one, it's a no-win situation for either one of us. It's going to end poorly. I learned that lesson. Lesson well learned. I appreciate the lesson, because now I know, it's like, maybe I need to check some more boxes first, right? But yeah, I'm a firm believer. You got to do the work first. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort. You got to develop those tools. You got to develop you got to use your resources, and reuse your resources as many times as it takes for you to get to where you need to be to. But
And you know what's important to mention in this, because I absolutely agree with you 100%,
yeah,
is that sometimes people do the work and they think they're ready, but they're not there yet.
right.
And it's not their fault. Again, it's not that they cheated us, it's not that they were mean. They did the work. But when you get in a relationship, when you're doing, like, I took 7 years for me, only for me, no dates, no
Exactly.
coffee, no dinners, nothing. And then when I started dating, other things that I thought I healed came up, because now I was in proximity with men. And I decided, okay, so this is time to date to see what else comes out, so
Hmm.
I can work on that. And I was very upfront. I'm not looking for anybody serious. I'm looking to date. Yes, I'm searching, but I'm being very cautious because I want to make sure I'm ready for the right person.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I used those dates to be in proximity with men in situations that can only happen in proximity with men, to see if I am ready. And that is also very important. And if you're open about it to people you're dating with, that's okay. The problem starts when you don't say those things and you
Mhm.
portray like, I'm all ready, I'm all good. And that's on the side of men and women. That's,
Oh
we're
yeah,
both
I totally
guilty of
agree.
that, right?
Totally agree.
And that person is looking forward to growing together, and then you, after 2 days, go, oh, I don't think I'm ready today. Okay, never mind, I've changed my mind.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that is creating distrust in the other person. Now, if you've grown and you healed, you understand and you let it go.
Hmm.
On the other hand, if you keep having the same experience, you're starting to wonder, is it me, or is are there so few people that have done the work? And from my experience, it is so few people that done the work.
And I totally agree with that. You know what I'm saying? On the other hand, um, before I done the work with myself, I made some bad decisions. right? And I paid for them dearly. I paid for them dearly. So in the situation before the last one that I was with, I was the problem. I was the toxic one in the relationship, you know, and I made bad choices. And it was a combination of things too, being lonely. Like we talked about this before, being lonely, especially, my mother had just passed away, right? I didn't know nothing about healing. I knew nothing about what I was going through. And so I really honestly, when my son passed away, the relationship that I was in, it ended. And I was told, and this is how it ended. It was about 6 months after my son passed away, and the young lady that I was with, she said, "You should be over it by now." And it just did not sit right with me. It did not, and I was like, "No, I just lost the kid." Well, you should be over it, and I was like, you know what? I appreciate you.
It's possible she didn't understand the loss and how that affects people
And I
because
and that I thought about that as well. But there was also more that was going on with her. She had experienced her own set of losses and never healed from those. So instead, what I'm saying, she wanted to, I got it. I wasn't upset with her. I really wasn't upset with her. But I knew right then and there that there was some more that I needed to do, that this relationship is not going to work.
right.
It's not going to work because, for one, what you just said, I'm taking it very personally. I'm taking it personally because you brought something to my realization that I am not in a good place for this. I am not in, and so it's the best. Sometimes the best thing you can do is the hardest thing that you can do. You walk away from it, right? So I took some time after that, and then I got into a relationship and I made bad decisions. Not cheating or anything like that, but I left the place that I was living at to move into a place where she was at, and kind of find out it wasn't the right choice, and I lost everything, right? Went homeless and everything. So again, you know, even as innocent as that sounds, um, I was still the toxic one in the relationship because I was looking for someone to save me, right? I was looking for someone to tell me that I'm not crazy, or what I'm saying, that everything is going to be okay. So instead of looking for a spouse or a mate, I was looking for a superhero. And I
And
was like, yeah,
that's the flaw also women have. So it's
that's
not only men that do that. We do that as women too. And I have found that I used to look for men who wanted to be saved.
mhm,
And I will help you, I will change you, I will support you, I will do all of this for you, where the I would take away the responsibility for their lives from them.
right,
And
yeah,
I did it with the best intentions. But what happened was is that very often, and that's again no fault of those men, when women take that responsibility on them, we become the sole support system and we build that man up. And if that man was hurt, I don't want to say broken because none of us are broken,
no,
but
it's
was not
impossible.
healed, was not healed, and he took that support, he's still not healed. And now he feels like $1 million. So he moves on because he can
Mhm.
get more from life.
Yes,
And women do the same thing as well, unfortunately. And I think both sides, make mistakes, but it's so important to recognize where you messed up, what you need to work on, and do not blame the other side. And I've messed up quite a few relationships.
yeah.
Oh, that was
Look,
the
if
work.
you, it's like you got to break a couple of eggs, right? You know what I'm saying? If you're not breaking eggs, you're not making an omelet. You know what I'm saying? That's just the bottom line. We're gonna use a food allergy analogy about it, but it's true though. But honestly, um, when that relationship happened, the best thing I did is that I just went into a world where it was just me and all of these different things that I can see that I needed to work on. And but I kept my head down. and I just moved. Like you couldn't even get a conversation out of me. I don't. I'm sorry. Nope. 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 I'm gone. You know, when we're like, hey, what did can we? Nope. 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 I'm gone. I don't want.
That was me for 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I was afraid. I was literally afraid. Right. I'm not afraid to admit it now, but I was scared shitless of getting into another relationship and hurting someone else because of me. Right. Not
Right.
because of them, but because of I was scared shitless. I was like, they seem, oh Tony, you wanna? I was like, no, no, no. And you know, I'm saying females that I've known for quite some time, they were like, oh, you still single? You want to go out? I'm nope, nope, nope. I'm good. Well, you want to come? Nope, nope, nope. I don't want to do it. So it was years and years and years. And we'll get into the gut brain connection, right? Because this is something that came, that I figured out as I was going through this process. I was in the bodybuilding and things like that. And I used to eat fairly healthy when I was bodybuilding. But then when I wasn't competing, well, I wasn't eating fairly healthy at all. I was eating cheeseburgers and what I'm saying, pizza, whatever I can get my hands on, that's what I was eating. And I realized that during that process, it was the worst I've ever felt. Worst I've ever felt. Like my emotions was like a roller coaster all the time. It was going this way and that way, up and down, you name it. It was going all over the place. And that's when I realized that the grief that I was carrying was the most active. It's when I wasn't eating correctly. I wasn't thinking correctly. Here I am putting all of these toxins into my body and things like that. And yeah, I look good on the outside. I really did. I look good on the outside. I mean, 6'4", 300 some odd pounds. Nothing but muscle. I'm like, I'm looking good on the outside. So this is what people see. And I'm like, don't judge a book by its cover. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know what's on the inside of me. Hell, I didn't even know what was on the inside of me. And then when I got into personal training, that's when I started paying more attention to it. So I got the bodybuilding over here. Now I'm a personal trainer. So now I'm all about health and taking the right supplements and, figuring out what's going on. And then I had talked to a friend of mine in Australia. And she was like, you need to check your gut. So what do you mean? She goes, you need to really check your gut. She goes, because if I'm correct, you're sick. And you don't know that you're sick. Said, what do you mean? I'm doing this research over here. And then I went deeper into it. She goes, look, check this out. And she broke it down to me. She goes, you've experienced major losses. You've gone through all of this crazy stuff. You got into bodybuilding. Now you're not eating healthy because now you're not competing. You're not training. What I'm saying? Yeah, you're still training, but you're not competing now. So what's the determining factor about how you feel? Oh, it's what I'm putting into my body. She goes, yeah, it's exactly what you're putting in your body. So let's dive a little bit into that. What I'm saying? The gut brain connection and how cleaning up the food that you eat can actually affect the way that you function.
So I think the first thing I am a big fan of evolutions, not revolutions.
Mm,
And we are unable most of the time there are some people who are, but 90% of the population at least is unable to do a revolution unless it's they're dying, cancer, whatever. Other than that, there's not enough of stimuli for us to keep that going. So evolution. Let's make it simple. Your gut is the manufacturing for your neurotransmitters that go to your brain.
mhm.
Your gut manufactures all the elements that need for you to build the muscle, eyesight, to produce the right chemicals, the right hormones, and whatever you eat can influence. So, very simple. If you're spending time in a place that has mold, you might even get your body to such a level of toxicity that
Yes,
you
yes,
might lose your memory. You might be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Although it might not be Alzheimer's, it will have the symptoms of Alzheimer's.
Mm.
So first thing, I don't get paid by them. I'm not their supporter. I don't distribute anything. But there is an app called Yuka, and I'm gonna invite you to download that app. It's absolutely free. You scan QR codes of products, and it
Oh,
shows you
okay.
how healthy it is on a simple way: red, orange, and green.
Mm.
If it's
Okay.
red, do not buy. Orange, once in a while, try to buy things that have a green dot. Now, what is the biggest organ outside of your gut that you intake everything into your body?
Yeah. The brain, isn't it?
Organ? No,
Or the heart?
skin.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay, okay. Go ahead.
Especially for Black men and Black women. 90% of your products are toxic and are killing you for your hair.
No wonder he left.
But there are quite a few women that do use them and men that use them. Change the products. This is something that clouds your judgment. This is something that, and that's on top of food that you're eating. If you're going to McDonald's, Chick-fil-A's, and everything else, first thing I would suggest, eliminate anything that has high corn fructose syrup. Start with
Yes,
that. When
yes.
you eliminate that and you learn to eat without it, go to the next step. Okay, you eat one serving of fruit, let's say, and one serving of veggies a day. Awesome. Let's make it a two now. And that's all you're going to do until it becomes normal for you. When you choose the foods, like for example, if you like ketchup, do not buy US ketchup. Buy ketchup that's produced in Canada or Europe because inside you have tomatoes, salt, and pepper. That's it.
Okay.
There's nothing added into that because it wouldn't be sold. So yes, you'll pay $1 more for that bottle of ketchup, but trust me, the quality, the taste, and what you're putting in your body will increase. Read the labels.
Yes.
Read the labels and
Yes.
choose one product at a time you're going to eliminate. I'm not a big fan. So one of the things that Dr. Amen says, and I really like that, is that everybody goes, "Oh, everything has to be organic." No, it doesn't.
No, no.
The only thing that has to be organic is anything that's blue
Mm.
because it sucks in the most out of chemicals and
Yes, yes.
lead and everything else that's not good for you. Now, to be honest, if you want organic apples, none of the apples you're buying really are natural because they are enhanced and everything we have is enhanced.
Mhm.
Natural apples are like this small. That's a natural apple. We call them wild apples. Those are the ones that were never genetically modified.
Mm.
So
Okay, okay.
everything genetically modified, and that's fine because a lot of those modifications, like pomelo, which I love, doesn't exist naturally. It's a mix of a grapefruit and a orange, and they're merged together, and you have pomelo. You know, mixed
Okay.
kids. They're also not showing up. You need to mix two races to get a mixed kid, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It
that's
works.
how I was born.
Yeah, it works.
That's exactly how they work, you know.
And quite amazing specimens are coming out also, right?
This is very true. This is
So
very
being leveled, not far to the right, not far to the left. Choose things that you can implement without suffering.
mhm.
Choose things. There's nothing wrong with drinking orange juice. Now, if you're drinking orange juice before you go to bed, just make sure you wash your mouth again. Get the sugars and fructose out of your mouth so your
Mhm.
teeth don't go bad. But if you really need that, glass of orange juice before you go to bed, drink that glass of orange juice for crying out loud. Just
Right,
don't buy it in the store, just press it out, right?
right,
So healthy eating, cleaner eating can be very simple because you get to choose. I work
right.
on a project on brain health with at-risk kids at one of Houston's schools that have been taken over. And when we talk about food that's good for your brain, none of those kids ever tried broccoli, cauliflower.
Yes.
They know what are carrots, but they
Yes.
don't try them. Well, guess what? There are phenomenal ways you can introduce that to your food intake in a way that you'll like it. And there are
Yeah,
so many awesome recipes that you can try out. And if you don't like this, try another recipe. It's not that hard.
yeah. You just got to figure out what works for you, right?
You don't have to eat super clean. Every time you make a better choice, celebrate. That's another very important thing. Anytime you make a good choice, celebrate, because then you have a release of dopamine from your brain. Your
Mhm.
gut is happy. Your brain goes, oh my God, that feels good. Let me do it again.
Yeah, like what is this, right? You know what I'm saying? I didn't think I could feel this way, right? Um,
Exactly.
and I totally agree. Like I said, there was a few things that I found that worked better for me. Going to, like I feel when I go heavy on like proteins and things like that for a few months, I tend to take probably about a couple weeks just doing plant-based foods, proteins and things like that. So I won't go meat, but strictly water. Or either I take my branched chain amino acids, which is good for the body, the muscles and everything. I'm up in age a little bit, so it takes a little bit more for me to stay healthier, and to be able to have everything that my body needs in order to keep developing, and keep my muscles healthy, keep me from cramping up and things like that. So just one of the little staples that I threw in there, and it was like I've always used it, and there's no sugar in it, so everything's natural. They're just 36 chains of amino acids that are necessary for the body to function. Energy. Why buy an energy drink? You know what I'm saying? I don't need an energy drink. I can drink this all day long. And it's primarily all water, right? So you're getting your fluids in you, but you're also getting those essentials that you need in order for your body and your brain to be able to function the way that it is. Keeps your gut healthy. And then, one of the staples that I use for my stomach a lot was for my gut health was kale. A lot of people don't like kale. And I used to get kale and salmon, and I would cook the salmon up, and I would take it off in little chunks like this, and I would wrap it up in the kale and walk around, eating the kale salmon like snack or something.
You know what's my favorite kale? When you
Huh.
make it into chips.
Ooh. I've never tried the chips. I always thought they were strange.
So you dry it in air fryer or you put it in your oven and you
Uh-huh.
add a little bit of seasoning, but tiny bit because kale has a distinct taste.
It
And then
does.
you bite and it's crunchy and it falls apart and you just enjoy it.
That's what I always thought that kale would do that. That's why I never cooked it and everything. I was like, if I cook it, how long do I cook it for? And then you start thinking to yourself, because I've done this before, put stuff in the oven and come out, it's like, oh, it just didn't make it. It really didn't, right? It didn't. So, I was like, well, I can deal with the raw kale. You know what I'm saying? Take the salmon, put it up in there, throw a little seasoned salt on it or something like that. Maybe if I'm feeling kind of frisky or something like that, I take a little hot sauce. Some Louisiana, and put it on up there just for the little kick or something. I'm not trying to be extreme. I really am not. I like my tongue the way that it feels, and the rest of my body when it's not hurting from making bad mistakes, right? I like that better. So take that, correct, and just I can eat that all day long. I love it. I can eat it all day long. But yeah, that was one of the things. And then salmon is really good for brain function, just like sort of like tuna. I love the fresh caught salmon. That's
Absolutely. Fish is great. Omega
yeah,
3, if you're not getting enough fish, omega
yes,
3.
yes,
And buy good omega 3 because a lot of people don't take it because it kind of comes back with the fishy smell, fishy
yes,
taste. There are different types of omega. The little bit more expensive ones do not have that residue after you swallow it, and you don't
yes.
get fishy taste if you don't eat enough fish. So there are ways to get around it, but it's so important not to pound the healthy way, but find your healthy way.
Right. I'm a firm believer in that, because not like what I did may not work for you, right? So my job is to make sure that we find something that does work for you, that doesn't have the processed sugars, that doesn't have the refined salts and things like that. So we stick with natural salts like your natural sea salts, right? Himalayan pink salt has always been a good way to go about it. And just more natural things. Anthony has a question for you. Along with the multivitamin, what other specific supplements would you recommend for brain health and function?
Anthony, if you reach out to me, you can email me or find me on Facebook, on Instagram, everywhere, Your Brain Coach D. I can send you a free complimentary brain type test. And in there, if you reach out back to me, has supplements depending on your brain type, because there are 16 brain types and every
Mhm.
brain has different, let's say, abilities. And I can tell you which one of those definitely highly recommend depending on the graph, because you'll get a generic one. I can read a little bit more into it if you reach out to me. And then you can purchase them. They're Dr. Amen supplements that I absolutely love. I use saffron, happy saffron, instead of antidepressants because I'm epileptic and I'm taking medication for epilepsy. And one of the things they do with epileptic people is that they automatically give us antidepressants because it changes the chemistry of your brain. Well,
Mhm.
I've been off antidepressants for a very long time, supplemented that with happy saffron. So, absolutely, even if you don't have a supplement, start using saffron in your diet the proper way when you grind it and just add it into your teas and food. I also use Neuralink and I use magnesium at night not to get cramps, and it makes you sleep better. So, but I'm brain type 1, so I'm the easy one. If you want to, feel free. It's a free test. It doesn't cost you anything. Um, and you'll see what types of supplements are recommended for you. If you don't want to use the Dr. Amen supplements, that's perfectly fine. Just read the ingredients and make sure you find something as close to it as possible with the dosages.
Mhm. Do me a favor. Just put your information down in the chats. That way he can reach out to you as well. And anyone else who's tuning in maybe they'd be interested in getting that test as well. Just because I know there's a lot of people that you know that would
I don't know why
possibly
I can't join.
want to. Huh?
It's not allowing me to join the chat.
It's not allowing you to join the chat. What do you?
No. Wants to connect me to YouTube. I mean, I can do that, no problem. We can
Okay.
stream at the same time, but it's allow. So those are the things we can do. There's every brainer is. Oh yeah, I have to connect to YouTube for me to be on the chat. Find me on.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. With the brain scan, 16 different types of brains, huh?
Yes, brain types. So
Brain
those
type.
brain types are predisposed, for example, to depression, to ADHD, to be worried, to have automatic negative thoughts, depending, what it is. Your brain time is predisposed, but as with genetics, if you're predisposed to getting weight, it doesn't mean you're going to be fat. You just
Right,
got to watch what you're eating and be more
right.
mindful. So
It,
the same thing with your brain type. It doesn't mean you're predisposed. You're predisposed, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen to you if take the right action.
are you getting busy over there?
Okay,
There you go. There you go.
there we go.
But yeah, I guess it's very similar. And the reason why I asked about that, the 16 different types of brain types, it sort of reminds me of eating right for your body, right? For your body type thing. Is it similar to that?
No, it's a little bit more advanced.
Okay. Well, that's the reason why I asked about that, because I've seen a lot of people that went through it, went eat right for my body type and things like that. And for some it worked, for some it didn't.
So brain type is based on activity of different parts of your brain, like
Mm.
basal ganglia, prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate, anterior gyrus, and all those different things. They're measured in certain ways. and it assesses what you're predisposed to.
Okay.
So it's based on a functionality of your brain. And then if we take into account, how much you're moving, what you're eating, and everything else, we can see how much of that kind of shows up in your life. Because if you don't take care of your brain, I don't care who you are. Brain decides on how you're breathing, how you're walking, how you're talking, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you're reacting, how you're sleeping, what is your response time, what is your intelligence, how is your brain connecting information, and how creative you are. Literally everything in your life is based on how your brain is functioning. So
Right.
why not give it 15 minutes a day and take care of it?
Now, I got a question for you. I think we talked about this before as well. The removing the metals out of your body is another way to get your brain to start functioning on a more optimal level, right? But also
Removing the metals, meaning the ones in food, or the ones
yeah,
that you have, for example, in I don't know, your implants.
well, no, no, not the implants, because those are sometimes, those are necessary in a lot of cases,
Yes,
especially when you
metals
start.
are toxic, and
Yeah,
certain metal, no, not all. Certain metals are toxic and
yeah,
should
like mercury.
like mercury, and
Yeah,
that comes from fish. So if you eat fish,
mm,
too much of it, and the wrong fish, you end up like Tony Robbins. And it's just now he got better. He had
yeah,
mercury poisoning that almost killed him. He was in a wheelchair, which most people don't know. And Tony Robbins is a big guy like you are. So, this dude in a wheelchair, it's quite terrifying. And it
yeah,
was all from mercury poisoning.
yeah. And it came from he named the fish off too, that was high in mercury,
It's
and
including your favorite fish, also,
yeah,
unfortunately.
salmon. I already know. But I have gotten better. I have definitely gotten better. Like the only time that now I eat salmon, I won't buy it from the store because I love fishing. Right, I love fishing. So when it comes down to salmon, it depends on the type of year for me where I could travel and do the fishing and catch the fish myself. I take it to a place to get it processed, frozen, and shipped home. That's the only way I would do it now. And then that way I have a fresh natural supply in my freezer. I don't have to eat it all the time, but when I need, if I feel myself not getting enough omega 3s and things like that, I know I can go and get some fish that's heavier in it, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's my go-to when it comes to that. More natural proteins like deer, elk, moose, bison, things like that. You know, I
You have
actually
some access to amazing meat, because buying what you're saying is
no,
quite
no,
challenging.
I hunt.
We
I
cannot buy that here in Houston.
Yeah, no, I hunt it. So every you know once throughout the year you get your tags and everything, and you go out and you may get lucky and get yourself a nice little elk or something, nice little deer or something like that. But it's cleaner protein, it's leaner, not heavier. It doesn't have all the toxins and stuff in there because it's not processed. It's not going through
Absolutely.
the things that most animals do. And I know where it comes from because once I take the animal down, I process it myself, quarter it out, skin it. You know what I'm saying? So I know where it comes from.
Well,
And
if
so
you have ever too much, please send it my way.
you know what? I will. I will. Buffalo is one of those things too. Go out there, get your nice buffalo. It's just something about it, right? You know what I'm saying? And I feel a lot better when I do it. Um, and my body feels a lot better. I think a lot more clear. You know what I'm saying? I don't have all the fats and
Yeah.
unnecessary fats and things like that. And I know fats can can affect the way your brain works as well. Especially when you're trying to heal. Um, there's some fats that are healthier for you, like avocados and things like that. A lot healthier for you. And there are some animal fats that are healthier for you as well. You just have to do it in moderation, right? Because just like any sort of fats that come from animals, too much can actually clog
Absolutely. And you know what? When we're talking also, because you're a trauma expert, one of the things that is super important for your brain when you're going through trauma, depression, is to check, first of all, D3 levels. And I have to move.
Yes,
So
yes.
another one is iron and ferritin. Those are, and magnesium. Those are responsible for how you feel. So being low on those prevents you from getting better. So it is super important that, you know, you are aware of those, especially if you're a person going through trauma, or even if you're not and you're experiencing certain, you know, feelings, or you're feeling down, get your blood work done once a year, please.
Yes. I actually started changing up my regimen a little bit. So a lot more natural things. You know, I do take my vitamin D3. I take that even though the sun is out. It's the weather's starting to change, right? You know what I'm saying? So you still, just because you can get it from the sun, no one ever talks about your insides.
That is true, but make sure you're at levels. Too much is not good for your brain either.
Right. But you can normally tell if you got too much. I normally when I sit down with most of my clients, we start coming up with a supplement list. It depends on the individual and what they're showing signs of, right? So I always tell them, you know, when you start this, don't ever start with the max dose. Don't ever do that. I know that's what it says. Don't ever do that. You're gonna do a whole lot of bad stuff to yourself. Your body needs time to get process this and let your receptors start to understand how to pick them up and put them where it needs to go in the body. It knows what it needs to do. You just got to give it time for it to do it. So I always tell them, you know, you're not going to take the max dose. You're going to take, you know, X amount for this amount of time. Then you're going to peak it out. Then you max it out for X amount of time. And then you're going to bring it back down to where you're going to taper yourself off. This allows the receptors to, give it time to clear itself out. But also it allows your body time to start to produce these things naturally on its own without the, without the shock, so to speak. I like to call it the shock because I've seen people go through some stuff and I'm just like, that's not how you do it because, because your body's not used to it. So you gotta give it to it just like anything else. You gotta give it to it in chunks. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be able to take it and be able to absorb it. And not.
Well, I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe things.
I don't prescribe. These are just vitamins.
And even vitamins, it's important to always check it with your blood work. So you know what's the baseline, not just the symptoms. And sometimes I had clients who would come to me and they go, I'm depressed. And after we check the blood work, I'm like, don't pay me yet. Don't pay me. Okay, let's get these things to norm, at least to norm, and come back in 6 weeks, tell me how you feel. And they would be, I'm fine after 6 weeks. I'm like, I thought, unfortunately, you most likely do not need my help unless there's something else you need to work on.
Right.
But it's not depression. It was just you were deficient in some things. And again, I want to also make a statement here very clear that depression is not only D3. Depression is not only hormone imbalance. There are billions of reasons and reasons why your body might go into that state. So it's not one size fits all. It's not only bad experience. It's not only lack of D3. It's not only hormones. And all of those can be piled up together. They can be separate, or there could be, some other things happening that might lead to that, to that feeling. So, we used to simplify, it's D3 and iron and ferritin. No, it can be, and it can be hormones, and it can be hormonal imbalance. It can, but it doesn't have to be. There are multiple reasons why you can get there. And that's very important, not to simplify.
I'm going to say this for the record. I'm going to say this for the record for anybody that's tuning in and you're listening to this. You know what I'm saying? This is for educational purposes only. You know what I'm saying? Before you do anything, consult with your doctor or physicians. We're not experts in any sort of medication or anything like that. These are just things that we've experimented with our own selves. Okay. So I repeat, this is for educational purposes only. So if you guys have any questions, like Dr. D just said, you know what I'm saying? The brain coach just said, go and get your blood work done. Make sure you're taking the necessary steps to get properly diagnosed so you can take the necessary steps to get yourself better. You know what I'm saying? These are just things that we've experimented with ourselves. So just wanted to put that out there for you guys and everything.
I'm
Don't
glad
take what
you
we say. Yeah, don't take what we say, you know what I'm saying, and go, oh, we did this. No, we're not telling you to go out and do that. These are just things that we, you know what I'm saying, that helped us along the way and things like that. So just as a reminder. And so, yeah, just wanted to put that out there. So yeah, but yeah, man, a lot of great things, man, a lot of great things. And I see you've already got your info in the comment section and everything. So people, you know, and her info will be in the link in the description as well. So you guys, even if you don't catch it here, go back and catch it and pull it out the description. Get in contact with her. Get your brain tested. You know, I really need to get mine tested because, you know, I may not got dementia or Alzheimer's, but I think I got some timers, you know.
We're super young at this point, and our brain, yes, it's aging, but aging of the brain is reversible, as Dr. Amen has proven over and over, with the proper diet, exercise, and working with a coach and changes in lifestyle. And everything you do in life, it depends on your grit and repetitiveness of certain behaviors. And, you know, being lonely, miserable, and happy takes as much as energy as being happy and a joyful person that is enjoying life. Both take as much work. Choose your poison.
This is true. I love it. I love it. I love it. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. You know, I love to wrap things up by asking the guests if you could leave the audience with something, with some words of encouragement, hope, inspiration, or anything like that. What would you tell them?
I think for today, I'm going to leave you guys with this because this is a grief podcast. And if you're in hell, keep walking because even hell has a border.
I like that. I like that. And, you know, here we are. We're wrapping up another one. Dominica, thank you for being on today, having such a wonderful conversation with me. This is beyond awesome, you know. And you guys gonna see a lot more of her as well, you know. You guys know how we do it, you know what I'm saying? It's the number one podcast for grief, for talk about grief, loss, trauma, addiction, and things like that. We bring in you guys some amazing guests every time that we come up here. You guys already know. Do me a favor, if you guys made it this far, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification, leave us a comment, share, and let people know what we're doing out here. And as always, thank you for your support. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And yeah, love you. Keep your head up.